The National Gallery in London was given by John Julius Angerstein. He had built up his art collection with the money made from the slave trade and his activities as one of Lloyd's underwriters insuring the slaves. According to one historian, the Bank of England should well have been called the Bank of the West Indies because of its involvement in slavery. So there you go, man. All that wealth that they have in London, you know, and all these banks. You got these youths walking around. You see us at camp in central London, walking around giving us funny looks because we, you know, we're not dressed up in so-called rich apparel, so to speak, man. And they're looking down on Jakes, you know. When they wouldn't be dressed up and have expensive garments if it weren't for on the back of our parents, man. You know, they have the cheek to look down on us when we're the reason why they were dressed up like that. Now I'm gonna scroll down to the point. Now this is pertaining to York because I'm gonna read it. The connections between the royal family and slavery continued. The Duke of York was branding the initials DY on the buttock or breast of each of the 3,000 slaves his business concern shipped to what were called the Sugar Islands in the Caribbean. So there you have it, man. You got these devils that basically were treating us as cattle, man. You know, as you brand an animal, you would brand the Israelite, man, and that's how they was treating us, man, just like animals, man. So that's why this devil's got a lot to pay for. Now, as an Israelite, if you have a slave or a servant, all right, you could bore a hole in their ear, but this devil took it that extra piece further and then put DY on the body, burnt DY on your body, just like as in the ancient world, used to mark your cattle so that you know which one is yours, you know. So I'm gonna read this. This is Deuteronomy 15 and 16. And it shall be, if he say unto thee, which is the servant, and it shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee and thine house, because he is well with thee, then thou shalt take an awl and thrust it through his ear unto the door, and he shall be thy servant forever, and also unto thy maidservant thou shalt do likewise. You see? So there you have it, man. You could mark your servant. But here's the damn devil's trying to brand you, man. Alright, this is Job chapter 1 verse 3. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. Right, man. So as you know, Job was wealthy, man. But how would Job know which cow or ox or whatever it be was his? Because you'd have to brand your animal, man, to know what your cattle is, man. Because there's laws in the Bible, in what is it, Exodus 22 and 11, So if a man steal your cattle, man, how you gonna know that cattle was yours? Through branding, man. Another way this devil's gonna brand you is with this chip, man. You know, this RFID chip. That's another way he's gonna brand you, man. The scriptures say no one shall buy you, man, meaning redeem you, man. Because once you take that chip, you're marked for death, man. Because basically what the so-called white man's saying is, what the elites are saying is, you don't belong to God anymore. You belong to me, you know. Esau's basically saying, you are my people, not God's people, you know. We're as if we're his possession and we don't belong to the Most High no more. Which that's going to backfire, but it's going to, only the elect are going to be redeemed and saved. But 2/3 are going to die, man, because they're going to accept that chip. Now we're going to look into another situation, man, because at the end of the day, Esau is the devil, you know, and he likes to do geoengineering, man. And there's something called cloud seeding, you know, and the way these forecasters forecast, you can tell that shit ain't natural, man.
We've got a big area of low pressure. We've been watching it since the middle of last week, really. It's quite interesting because it actually broke away from an old hurricane, which is still sitting well to the south of the UK. But from that, we actually had a breakaway area of low pressure, which developed over the course of the weekend and spread its way northwards. Quite a vicious little area of low pressure. It started off moving quite quickly, as you can see here, but once it's reached our shores, it's now sort of ground to a halt. Now, it's broken away, I say, from an ex-hurricane, so it's got a lot of warm air in it, a lot of moisture in there. The clouds above us are about 7 or 8 miles thick at the moment, and they are dropping an awful lot of heavy rain. And as you can see, we're expecting that low to stick around for at least the next day or so. Now, what's happened over the last 24 hours, that low's pressure's arrived, and we've seen some very heavy rain. Here's the radar. It shows the brighter colours. There was some heavy rain across eastern areas yesterday, but the main focus this morning has been across Wales and southwest England. Really intense rainfall, 30-40 millimetres, an inch and a half has already fallen, and that's why the flood warnings are on the increase. When I came on this morning, there was only 1, and they've already picked up to 20 just this morning. They will continue to rise. So that's the big problem at the moment, rainfall. It's already caused widespread disruption to trains, that sort of thing, transport. The big problem now, I think, will be the strength of the wind, because the winds haven't really picked up yet, but they are going to. We're going to see severe gales on the south coast and then later on up the east coast, and those will have an impact also on the ferries and that sort of thing. So fairly widespread disruption expected.
And how long is all this going to last, do you think?
Well, that area of low pressure isn't going anywhere quickly. It's certainly sort of ground to a halt, pushing northwards slowly, so the worst of the weather moves north today, and then it sort of hangs around tomorrow. The winds will ease maybe just a touch, and then gradually by Wednesday, that area of low pressure starts to sort of weaken. So some very heavy rain, potential problems for the next 24, 48 hours, and then things start to improve for the end of the week.
OK, Alex, thanks very much indeed. Alex Deacon. Just to say, you can send us your pictures and video on the weather by email to yourpics@bbc.co.uk or upload them via our website, www.bbc.uk/have-your-say.
This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Geoengineering. Take a look at this next clip.
What do ski resorts, sub-Saharan Africa, and the Beijing Weather Modification Office have in common? They all engage in something called cloud seeding, a controversial technique once mocked by scientists and meteorologists alike as belonging in the realm of pseudoscience, but now clawing its way back into the mainstream. Cloud seeding works by dispersing chemicals like silver iodide into the air, where they can act as nuclei for the formation of ice particles, increasing the precipitation that falls from the clouds. And just like that one superhero from X-Men, who can only manipulate fire, cloud seeding only works on clouds that are already formed. It can't create them out of nothing. Now, at first glance, this seems pretty cool. Drought-stricken areas could reduce crop damage just by sending silver iodide rockets into the sky. But as it turns out, we can't always control all the variables. Earlier this year, an attempt by the Chinese government to increase rain using this technique ended up causing record-breaking snowfall instead, in addition to over 40 weather-related deaths. So when it comes down to it, weather modification goes into a long list of things we probably shouldn't be messing with. Worst case scenario, something goes wrong and we end up with a world full of personal Eeyore-style storm clouds floating over our heads. Oh, bother.
So this leads me to my next document. You have to ask yourself, has this happened in the past where there's been any of these experiments going wrong? And the answer is yes. And I'm going to read this document. This is a site called the tapblogspot.co.uk. The document is called Deadly Flood Blamed on RAF Rainmakers. It says, the heavy rainfall and flash floods that struck Devon village of Lynmouth nearly 50 years ago, killing 35 people in a single night, may not have been a natural disaster. It was claimed yesterday newly declassified documents have been produced back to suggestions that the RAF was involved in rainmaking exercises during the period of the floods took place. Former RAF servicemen have described how they took part in the experiments in the years running up to the flood, a claim consistently denied by the Ministry of Defence. So the scripture says that their tongue shall fall on themselves, man. So I'm going to play this next video for you.
A microphone having been passed across to him.
This is Mr. Tom Bevan speaking. I am now standing on the front steps of my hotel. What you see in front of you, this raging torrent, was originally the main road from Minehead through Lynmouth to Linton. This was caused by the overflowing of the West Lynn River during Friday night's storm. On Friday afternoon it rained continuously, and from 6 o'clock onwards the downpour was torrential. In the hotel we first had signs of flooding about 8 o'clock, but took little notice of this as our cellars had flooded before. However, the water suddenly rose at a tremendous speed, and we had to evacuate even the ground floor. About 9:30, there was a tremendous roar. The West Lynn had broken its banks and dashed against the side of the hotel, bringing with it thousands of tons of rocks and debris. In its course, it carried away the chapel opposite and a fruit shop. 3 people who were in the fruit shop were swept through the window against the lounge windows of the hotel, which you see on my left.
Kenneth Oxenham.
Ken Oxenham, one of the local fishermen. The great storm swept away all our boats, and as you can see, it's even swept away the harbour. We all put extra ropes and chains on our boats, expecting there to be some sort of a flood coming down the river. And just as we got a